All right, so one of the most important things when recognizing the periodic table and putting things together, putting together chemicals and making them compounds, is recognizing what ions things form. What ions does each element on the periodic table form? An ion, by definition, is a charged particle. It differs from an atom because atoms always have the same number of protons and electrons. And we're going to see how ions describe different amounts. And we're going to deal with this in the next unit, and we're going to kind of put this all together. But an ion is a charged particle, and it differs because it has the different number of protons and electrons. Atoms always have the same protons and electrons. So if you have an atom of sodium, to figure out how many protons there are the atomic number. There are 11 protons. And the reason there are 11 protons is because when you look on the periodic table and see Na, you look and there is an 11 well, at least on our periodic table, where it kind of has it like this and it's got the other number below. The whole number is the atomic number, and therefore that's the number of protons. Atomic number is the number of protons. So if we have an atom of sodium, we would also have 11 electrons. And protons are positively charged, electrons are negative. Therefore, when you have an atom, it's a neutral substance because the protons and electrons cancel each other out. Okay? So again, the number of protons is the atomic number, and if it's an atom, they're going to be the same. So if we look at another element, let's say mercury. Mercury, you look up on the periodic table, the atomic number for mercury is 80. Therefore, if we have an atomic number of 80, that means we have 80 protons in an atom of mercury. Therefore, also 80 electrons. That's 80 pluses, 80 negatives, a neutral substance. Now, an ion is different than that because it can be positive or negative. It's a charged particle. And how do we know how it's charged? Well, if there are different number of electrons. So, for example, if we go back to sodium, sodium's always going to have 11 protons. And the reason we know it's going to have 11 protons is because it is sodium. Now, if we have less electrons, let's say now 10 electrons, it's going to be positively charged ion. Why? Because protons are positive, electrons are negative. If we have 11 pluses and 10 negatives, we have one more plus then negative, one more positive charge than negative charge. Therefore, sodium has a 1 plus charge. It would be an ion. Okay, we can take a look as if sodium, again, still 11 protons, which is positively charged. Let's say it gained an electron, 12 electrons. Those are, we have more more negatives than positives. So we would have a 1 minus charge on this example, sodium 1 minus. Now, different atoms form different ions, and they want to form, let's say, a positive as opposed to a negative. Sodium's one of those. We would form a positive charge on sodium rather than the negative. But I'm just showing you here how if you lose an electron, notice how we had 11 protons, which means we would have had 11 electrons as well in an atom, and it lost one. If you lose an electron, you form a positive charge. If you gain electrons, notice we had 11, and if it was an atom, we also would have had 11. We gain to 12, so gained electrons, we form a negative charge. It's confusing to some people. When you gain electrons, you actually get a negative value for the charge. But again, it's because electrons are negatively charged. We're not touching the protons at all. We're still going to have the same number of protons when you form these ions, but it's either a loss or gain of electrons, and then you form your charged particle. A positively charged particle is called a cation. Okay, they're both ions, positive or negative. A positively charged one is a cation. A negatively charged ion is an anion. I like to remember cation. Just to me, the T looks like a plus sign, so I see the T in the middle of cation, and to me it looks like a plus sign, so I remember that a positively charged ion is a cation. A cation versus an anion.